Once we've entered the details in for the health graph, we then need to go to the NeuroGraph, and because we clicked on the button to create the graph, so the program automatically created a health graph, a NeuroGraph, and a recommendations list at the same time. So let's go now back to the NeuroGraph by clicking on the highlighted NeuroGraph button. And in this case we're going to find one because there's already one there. Now we're on the NeuroGraph program. What we now do is click on the scores, and we can start entering the scores into the program. And as you can see here, we can just click into the field and then start putting the numbers in as your patient filled out in the form. A yes answer from the yes/no questions equals 3. When there's severity and frequency scores, it's from 1 to 3, and if there's no score, you just leave the field blank. So in this case we'll say it's 2 and 2 and 3 and so forth. You just go through filling out the form as per the questionnaire and just tabbing through the fields. When you see the drop down menu, what you can do to make it a faster process, with the drop down menu there, I'll type the number 3 and then press enter, and that'll take you automatically to the next field, and 2 and enter, and so on. If you need to go from one field to the other without putting a score in, you can still press the enter key and that'll just cycle you through this through the fields. If for some reason you need to go back or whatever, you can click into the field and then start afresh. Then we'll go further forward. Once the scores are in, all the scores, there are 3 pages of scores. You can then, on the bottom of the questionnaire, as you'll note, you also tag when the symptoms are worse and how much it affects your lifestyle, etc. And so once all the scores are in, click on the Go to Graph button and that'll take you to the NeuroGraph itself. When there are a whole lot of high scores, as we're seeing here, and this is not unusual, you can make it a bit easier on the eye by using our reduction factor drop down menu. And let's reduce all of the scores by 20%, and you'll see as you go higher with the reduction factor, it'll start to drop some of the graphs off. So it just makes it a little bit easier for you to see which areas really need to be treated. I usually take it down to so there's only about 3 the areas that need treatment. Just keep taking it down, say 50%, and go again, 60%. There we go, we've got 3. So we've got, in this case, we've got serotonin, we have noradrenaline, and we also have acetylcholine. And we can decide to treat these now by putting in, say, 1 or 2 products at a high dose. The LO just means a lower maintenance dose. So we'll say here 1 product for the serotonin, for the noradrenaline 1 product, and for the acetylcholine 1 product. And the program, as you can see, automatically will recommend products. But something which I do before I get to that stage is I usually look at the graph as it appears now, without any reduction, and then I go, say for example, phenylethylamine is 123% for treatment. So we go to that area by clicking on the heading phenylethylamine, and what it does is it takes us to the individual graph for PEA, and you can see then what answers they've given which gave the highest score. So on antidepressants, short attention span, tired all the time, have little energy. What we can do is then go back to the main graph again. So for example, I'll click on that button, and so let's see what questions have answered that gave us the high score with serotonin. And we can see down depression, the winter months, taking antidepressants and so forth. And we can also see, if we look further down, things like OCD, repeating certain actions, short attention span, trouble concentrating, craving carbohydrates and sugary foods, which you will do if you're low in serotonin, and feels nervous in public places and so forth. So by looking at the questions that they've answered in each of the neurotransmitters, you can decide which of the neurotransmitters you really should prioritize for treatment, even though they might all be showing a high priority. Some high priorities obviously are more important than others. So in this case, by using the reduction factor, taking it back by 60%, we can see the ones that really need treatment, not only from their scores but also from the symptoms that they presented. And the program has automatically recommended products. Let's look now briefly at the relationship between the overall health graph and the neurotransmitters. We're looking at this particular graph with the patient. We notice that there's problems in the cardiovascular area, problems with allergies, immunity. We need to do a detoxification, problems with blood sugar response, problems with the hormones, and also problems with neurotransmitters. And I've tagged those areas and have put in the various nutrients that we want at different levels, one for cardiovascular and so forth. And here we have the associated NeuroGraph with the health graph that I completed at the same time by the client. And here we have, sitting right beside on the right of it, the associated health graph overview assessment. And you can see here we've got the various system, the neurotransmitters are in trouble, also the hormones, reproduction's got problems, endocrine system have got problems. So that's why we've done both questionnaires. They really need to be addressed at the same time as you're working on the neurotransmitters, because you can't separate these two systems. One feeds into the other, and if you just try and do it in isolation, you're not going to get the success you should be getting. So in a case like this, it always pays to do a detox, get these basic things done. Make sure that they're on a program that helps the hormones come into balance, and also things like blood sugar regulation, they need to be addressed as well. And also too, you can start treating probably the most serious of the neurotransmitter imbalances. That will give you, as I mentioned, much better results. So once we've decided which neurotransmitters we want to treat, and we've tagged them, and we've also done the same with the overall health graph, we can then go to the recommendations or the script area, and we can start to put products in. And I've got this set up in an interesting way on the scripts and recommendations layout. We've also got the ability to see the recommendations of the product as well as the graph. This makes it easier for when we're putting in the product recommendations. We can see the information beside us what we'd previously decided, so we could put in say example some hydrozyme, and then we can just tab across. You want them to have it on an empty stomach, start of meals, and so on and so forth. One here, and one here. And you can just keep on going and put further products in as you go. You can then click on the arrow up the top, which will take us from the health graph analysis recommendations page to the NeuroGraph analysis recommendations page. And once again, we can see the graph and the recommendations that we had made for that person on the recommendations layout. And so we can just go on adding more products to the patient's prescription pad and so forth until your prescription is complete. We can then use the print button at the top of the page to print out a report for our clients. And this is an example of what would print out. It's a lot easier for your patients to read, and also to you have a permanent record stored as well. Once all that's complete, you can then just go back to the patient database by clicking on the patients button.